Hello, students. This is Ankush here, your design instructor. And today we are going to be learning on how to make a mock-up of a web page or a website layout. All right. We won't be covering the entire website and all of its pages. We are only learning how to create a mock-up of the home page or the main landing page of the website. Okay. So here I have the mockup that I have created for demonstration purposes. Now this mockup is imaginary business that I have conceptualized called King's Food. It's a restaurant and a food delivery business. Okay, and they have a website, and I've created this mockup for their business. Okay, so I want to break it down to you on what are the different parts of the mockup, and let's understand step by step on the process that's required to create such a mockup. Okay, so the first and foremost thing is the header of any website or landing page. The header is the area where you have the business logo and you have the links to the various pages on the website. Okay, it also has some important information on reaching out to the business, like calling or email could be added in there if that's the nature of the business. And then there will be some important icons here which will either allow you to search on the website, or if there's a user account with the business, you can access that through this. And the card is basically to add different items if it's an e-commerce website. Okay, so that's the header of the website itself, followed by the second in order is the hero section of the website. Now, what is the hero section? The hero section is the banner right below the header. Okay, so what we can see here is the hero section where we have this image of the dish, that one of the dish that the business sells or prepares, and then we have a subheading, a main heading, a paragraph, and then some call to action buttons that will do a specific function based on its text. Okay, and then there's this rectangle that's like a vector image behind the image itself, the image of the bowl. And then there are some icons spread across this hero section to indicate that it is a food related business. Okay, it's subtle, it's not too loud, and it's nicely placed. Okay, so that's the hero section of the website or a web page. Now, the hero section has an advantage where you can project your main promotion, or the most important information about your business, because it's the first thing that the customer will notice when they open your website. Okay. Next, followed by there is this hidden image of a dish behind the hero section, which acts like a dial. Perhaps that's like a design element which is hidden. And what's important to note is that the hero section kind of covers this dish, so it gives me a feel of a menu card. Okay, with a shadow. Moving on to the next section is the USP or selling points of the business. So there are three selling points. The first one is the best chef, then there's fresh food, and then there's fast delivery that the business offers. This is a great spot to indicate the selling points of the business. Okay. Next section is the About Us section, where we will be talking about the business itself and what are their services, what is their story, how did they conceptualize it. Okay, something like that goes here. And followed by the blog, various dishes that the restaurant or the business prepares, and the recipes can be linked here as blocks, and then each of these blocks will take you to the main blog page. And then there is this arrows to the left and right which will help us scroll through the blogs itself. The next section is the footer section. In the footer, again, you will have the logo of the business, followed by some text about the business. The contact information like the phone number and the email goes here. Quick links to the website goes here. and then the Instagram channel that the business has can be populated here in small images, showing a preview of the Instagram channel where the customer can click and go further to explore the Instagram channel of the business itself. The last section of which is a subsection of the footer is the copyright information. Basically, all copyrighted related text goes here. If there are links to any policies, refund policy, okay, privacy policy, all that links go here because they don't have to be the main attraction of the business. It is something secondary. It is technical, so it can be in this spot at the bottom. It doesn't have to be at the front. So that's the order of things when it comes to designing a web page. And you will notice that most of the businesses follow this particular style of order of things when it comes to web page. Yes, the sections may interchange, but overall, that's the communication that helps the business create a good website. Okay, so having said that, let's begin the process of designing this entire mockup in the next video. The next step in the process is to fire up your Photoshop. And once you open it, we'll begin with starting a new file. So go ahead into File and click New. Photoshop will project this dialog box for you, and it'll ask you what kind of project you want to start. So for this particular project, we are doing a web-based project. So I'm going to click on Web, and then Photoshop will give me some templates of the artboard that it has to offer. So here we will be selecting the appropriate artboard that we will be using to build the mockup. Now, the most common artboard size is 1366 by 768. It's a resolution used by most of the laptops out there in the market, mostly Windows laptops. Mac and Apple computers come with a higher resolution, but it is becoming a standard now to have full HD resolution laptops. Okay, so we will go ahead and select the next one, which is the Web Large, which is 1920 by 1080p, which is the full HD resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you see that the width and height is populated here. Make sure that the artboard checkbox is checked because we need to build this project as an artboard. So make sure that is checked in. Now the resolution is 72, which means all raster images and all the project images will be rendered at 72 pixels, which is the web-based resolution. Okay, but for my project, I want to work with 150 pixels per inch because I want good quality of images on my mockup, and I don't want to compress them as I'm working on them. Okay, I want to have the control of compressing them later and saving them later into 72 pixels. But for my working file itself, I want it on a higher resolution. So I'm going to change this to 150. Now you ask why 150? Because if we can also select 300, which is what I have taught you for most of the projects. But since a mockup involves a lot of different elements to it and a lot of different images into it, there may be instances where your laptop may hang or slow down because the resolution is quite high for all of those elements. My computer can handle it because I have more RAM in it, whereas yours may not be able to handle it. So we're going to select 150 as resolution here. The color mode will be RGB, which is the web standard, and background content can be white. And color profile will be selecting working RGB because that's the standard for all the RGB devices out there. So once we've selected the appropriate settings for the document, we're going to go ahead and click create. So the moment you click create, the artboard will come up on the screen, and we are ready to build the project. Okay. However, since we are building a mockup, we are building a web-based design, we will need Photoshop to have its layout formalized to something like a web and graphic workspace. Okay, so remember I've told you about different workspaces when it comes to Photoshop. So we're going to go ahead and change the workspace to graphic and web. I already have it selected here. You can go ahead and click this, and you'll see that elements across your screen will move around, and you will have all the appropriate panels that are involved in creating a mockup or a web-based design. Okay, right. So having said that, now we have the project set up, and it says untitled 1. We're going to go ahead and save this file, and we're going to call it King's Food v1, which is the working file version 1. I'm going to click save. I'm going to hit OK, and you see now we have the file saved as a PSD file for us to start working on it. The next step of the process is to create a guide system. Now, a guide system will help you align things on the artboard appropriately in line with each other, and it'll aesthetically look good. You need a reference point to help you align all these elements. So a guide system will help you do that. So to set up a guide system, first and foremost, we'll have to analyze the artboard itself. Now we have an artboard of full HD size, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. All right. But I don't want my website to be edge to edge. All right. A full screen website. That's just too large for me as of now. I need my website to be centered on a specific pixel length. All right. I don't want a edge to edge website. So I want a website which is 1200 pixels from one end to the other end, and which perfectly aligns to the center of my entire screen. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and select the rectangle tool, and I'm going to build, a rectangle right at the center. Okay. And the moment I let go of my mouse, you see the rectangle is populated on the screen, and all the properties related to the rectangle are visible here at the properties panel. Okay. Remember the workspace that we adjusted to graphic and web? This is exactly why it's important that you adjust your workspace, because you will get all the related values to your assets right here on the right side. Okay, now we have this rectangle here. We don't need any stroke, so we're going to cancel out the stroke by clicking on stroke and using this diagonal red line that will remove any stroke on the rectangle. And look at the width and the height. We need the width of the rectangle to be 1200 pixels, because that is the width of the website that we're looking at. Okay, so the moment you click on the height, it will automatically adjust the height, because the height and width are linked right here. Okay, so I'm going to unlink this for now, and using the move tool, I'm going to just put it right at the top, align it at the top, and you see the height is kind of overflowing beyond the artboard. So if I hit Control T on the rectangle, I'll get this blue bar, and I'll be able to see how much it's overflowing. So I'm just going to click and drag the height of the rectangle to fit into my artboard and hit enter. All right. Now you see the rectangle is there on the artboard, but it's not at the center. I want it to be perfectly centered into the artboard. I can click and move it around into the center, but I may be wrong in, analyzing the pixels, and I may shift the pixels one or two left or right. So to perfectly align elements on the artboard, I'm going to select the rectangle, and using the align tools on the top, I'm going to hit center align right here, and the rectangle will automatically fit itself to the center of the screen. Okay, so now we have a reference point, which is the rectangle, and that's the width of the website. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the guide system. So to create the guide system, you'll have to navigate into view, go to guides, and then select new guide layout. The moment you select this, you will get some reference guides on the artboard and a dialog box where you can adjust these guides based on your requirement. Okay, let's understand this dialog box here. So the preset is set to default, okay? And below that, there are some 8, 12, 16, and 24 column settings. What are these settings? Basically, these settings will help you basically design a mockup based on the devices that you're designing them for. Now, our standard across the internet is a 12 column guide system for a desktop website. A 6 column is for tablet sizes, and 3 column is for mobile devices. So, since we are building a website mockup, we're going to select 12 columns, and we're going to target the selected artboards, which is the artboard 1. We're going to leave that as it is, and the color of the guides can be selected here. So I can go ahead and select any color of my choice. I'm going to select magenta because it's contrast to the website that I'm building. My website has more of yellow, so the magenta will kind of contrast and I can see the guides clearly. Okay, so below that there are column checked in. You can also select rows. That will create rows, but we don't need rows as of now. We're going to leave that unchecked. So 12 columns. The gutter is basically the space between each of the columns. Okay, so there are 12 columns. So this is the first column, this is the second, third, fourth. So if you keep counting, you'll see there are 12, and the gap between those columns is the gutter, which is 20 pixels wide. Now, the guide system is from the left to right of the entire artboard. We need it centered to the rectangle that we created, because that is the limit of the website. So we're going to go ahead and select margin. What is margin? Margin is basically space from the left, from the right, from the top and the bottom, just like how you use it in a word processor. So the margin will space out these spaces. So at the top, we don't need any margin. We're going to leave that to 0. The left, I'm going to select something like 300, and you see the left side kind of squeezes in. We don't need anything in the bottom, so we're going to hit 0. The right, again, we're going to equally have the same margin like from the left. So 300, 300, and you see both sides are now squeezed in. But however, there is still some gap between the rectangle and the guide system. So play around with these values until you hit that the last line in the guide aligns with the rectangle that you have created. So I'm going to hit 360, 360, and you see now I'm just going to zoom in. I can't zoom in until I close this. Anyways, so now you can see that it's perfectly aligned with the rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I have my guide system perfectly created as per the size of the rectangle. Okay. Now, another important point about the guide system is that when you begin placing your elements onto the page, there could be instances that by accident you may click and move the guide away from its place. Okay, that's because the guide is not logged. It is freely movable right now. So, and just undo that and bring it back. So we will have to lock this guide system so that these guides are fixed and they do not move from their place. So to lock the guides, you can go ahead and select view, go to guides and select log guides. And you see now these guides, they are unmovable. I can't even select them, right? So that's how you lock the guides. And right, you can toggle between viewing the guides and hiding them by a key combination on your keyboard, which is command and colon or control and colon. That will do the same thing in Windows. So when you are placing elements and you want to see the entire mockup without the hindrance of the guides, you can just temporarily hide them by hitting command control colon and have a look at the mockup, and then enable them back again by hitting the same key. Okay, so with the guide system setup, let's start building the header of the website. Before that, don't forget to get rid of this rectangle now that its purpose is done. So we're just going to select the rectangle and hit delete and get rid of it from the screen. Okay, the next step is to install the fonts or the typefaces that you will be using in your project. Okay, this will be necessary, because without the typefaces, your computer or Photoshop will not recognize the fonts that you are trying to use. So before you begin the mockup process itself, go ahead and install all of these fonts. So for any font to be installed on the computer, you just have to open the folder of the font and then double click on the font itself. And mine is a Mac system, so it will have a different layout on how to install the fonts. Windows will have different, but they're pretty similar to each other. You all know how to install fonts, so go ahead and do that. All you got to do is install, and then follow the same process for all the different font weight variations for the Montserrat font here. And then we have another font called Anja Eliane. So go ahead and install this font in your computer as well, and then we should be geared up to begin designing the mockup. Okay okay so the next step to designing the mockup is going to be on your folder system on your computer. Okay, now, before beginning any design process, first and foremost, it's important to collect all the assets properly and organize them into folders, so that when you actually begin building the mockup or any design project per se, then it's easier for you to find elements since they will be perfectly organized in folders. Okay, so let's understand what are the folders and how I have organized the data. So you can see that the typefaces and fonts that are used by the brand are perfectly placed under typefaces and fonts folder. Okay, there are two fonts in there, and then there is a style guide folder which consists of the style guide that the brand has with all the instructions on the color palette and the logo usage. So we've been through the style guide in our lecture. So that style guide is part of the folder system here. Then we have the logo itself. There are two variations of the logo the brand has supplied to us. So we have the main logo, and then we have the logo in dark surfaces. All the images for the mockup are under the images folder. Okay, they're all in there. Some are PNG, some are JPEG, so everything goes under images. And then there are icons. So all the icons that are part of the mockup are placed under a folder called icons. Okay, now that's my working finished file. You will have a working file like a PSD file. Okay, so that will be here. You can always put them in a folder called PSD. Okay, and then start your project from there. Okay, the next step, I have opened the style guide of the brand on Photoshop. Okay, and let's analyze the style guide to better understand how it's going to help us build the mockup efficiently. Okay, now, in your assignment, I asked you to build a style guide for your own brand. Now, this is very similar to the same assignment that I gave you. Now, this brand has the logo usage in two varieties, which is this is on the lighter background and this logo will be used on darker backgrounds. So we have that reference. Then followed by the primary colors that the brand uses. They also have mentioned a hex code for both of the primary colors that we can use in a project. There are secondary colors which can be used for other elements on the mockup. Okay, and also they have defined the two typefaces that the brand uses. Okay, they have not specified the sizes of the typeface of their brand, so we have the freedom to change up the typeface weights or the size based on the requirement of the web page mockup. Okay, now using this as a reference, we are going to be building certain swatches for the colors. We are going to be building some paragraph styles using these two typefaces so that they are consistently and efficiently we can use them in our mockup without delaying our project, and making our workflow more efficient. Okay, so let's go ahead and first build the swatches for the brand. Now, to build the swatches, what you got to do is that now we have the style guide open here. Now, using the eyedropper tool, you can hit I on your keyboard, and then you will have access to the eyedropper tool. I want you to go ahead and click on the primary color, and you see that the primary color will then populate itself in the foreground color right here. And if you navigate to the project that you're working on, you will still see that the color is enabled here in the foreground color. Now that's good. Let's have it there. And to view the swatches, we're going to go ahead and click Window and select Swatches from here. I'm just going to expand this, and we have the swatches panel open right here. Now there are specific groups of the swatches already listed here. These are the swatches that Photoshop has offered us by default. Okay. Now we want to create a new swatch for our brand. So I'm going to go ahead and click on creating a new group, and I'm going to call this King's Food Swatch and hit OK. And you see, as soon as I do that, another group gets formed here in the swatch panel. And then I can go ahead and create a new swatch by hitting this plus icon right here. And then you see the foreground color populates itself here. And I'm going to call it brand orange. And I'm going to hit OK. Okay, the next color, we are going to use the eyedropper tool, select the green, go back into our project, and I'm going to add another swatch, and you see the foreground color gets populated. I'm going to call this brand green and hit OK. And you see the swatch gets formed here. I'm just going to click and drag it to my group, which is King's Food Swatch. I just clicked and dragged the group to the top so that I have easy access to it. Okay. Now let's go on to the next secondary color. Using the eyedropper, I go ahead and select it, go to my project, add a new swatch. I'm going to call this brand beige, hit OK. And you see now it automatically comes into the group. I'm going to go back, select the white, call it brand white, hit OK. Let's do the same thing for black, create brand black, hit OK. So we have the primary colors and the secondary color swatches ready for us for the project. Okay, now that we have the color swatches set up, the next step in the process is to define the paragraph styles or the text that we will be using in the mockup. Okay, now to do that, I'm going to temporarily hide the guide system using command colon. Okay, and then I'm going to enable or view my paragraph style panel. So I can do that by going to Window and then selecting Paragraph Styles panel. And you see the panel will pop up on your screen. You can enlarge it to have a better view of the Paragraph Styles panel. Okay. Now to create the different sizes that we will be using, the typefaces and sizes on the website, what I'm going to do is select the text tool, and I'm going to create a paragraph on the screen. Okay. And as soon as I do that, it will pick up a default font that is used by Photoshop right now. Now that's fine. We're going to leave it at that. And then we're going to look at the paragraph styles dialog box here. And I'm going to hit this button right here, which says clear override, which will clear up any old formatting that you have enabled on the text for this particular paragraph. So we're going to do that first. And you see, as soon as you do that, it goes back to its basic default font. So we're going to create a heading for our website. So we're going to go ahead and select the create a new paragraph style button here. And then you see you will get an option at the top. Double click on that and define the heading here. So we're going to call the style name as the heading, and the font is Anja Iliane, and the size of the font is 60 pixels, and the color of the font is black. And you see the preview changes as you keep changing the values here, which is exactly how we need it. I'm going to hit OK. Now we have a paragraph style called heading set up for our document. So let's go ahead and create another paragraph, which will be the subheading. I'm just going to click and drag. So the moment you click and drag, it will take in the settings from the previous style that you have worked upon. So we are going to override that. So to do that, go back to your paragraph style, hit override, create a new paragraph style, double click on this, and you're going to call this subheading. And the subheading is again Anja Iliane, but the font size is smaller. It's 28 pixels and not 60 pixels. So we're going to change that to 28 pixels, and we're going to hit OK. So great. Now we have a subheading and a main heading. The third we need is a paragraph. So we're going to go to the text tool again, create a new paragraph, and again gonna hit the clear override button here, create a new paragraph style, double click on it, call it paragraph, and the font for the paragraph we've chosen is Montserrat. So we're gonna go ahead and select that from the list, and it's a regular font, and the font size is 16 pixels, and the text color is black, which is fine, and you're gonna click OK. Okay, something didn't line up here. Okay, yeah, I just forgot to click the override button here. I think this should have sorted the issue. Yeah, so now we have the heading, we have the subheading, and then we have the paragraph. Okay, let me show you a demo of how this is going to work. So let's say I create a new paragraph here, and which it takes in from the last text that you have typed on the screen. But I don't want it to be this. I want it to be a heading. So what I can do is just select the text and hit override and select heading, and that will make it into a heading. The same way, I'm going to create another paragraph here, and it will take in the heading. I'm going to clear override. I'm going to select subheading, and that will transform itself to the subheading. Okay. I'm going to create another paragraph here. I'm going to hit clear override and select paragraph, and you see now it has the paragraph setting. So this is exactly how you need to set up your paragraph styles so that you can easily use this fonts and weights across your project. Okay, so without further ado, let's start bringing the elements into the screen. Okay, now let's open up the folder that we have, and let's start with the logo. So we're going to be using the logo that we use on the light background, which is logo.png. So we're just going to click and drag that on the screen, and the moment you do that, the logo will align itself in the center of the screen. I can hit shift on my keyboard, and I can click and drag to resize this logo uh, for the whatever size I want it to. And I'm going to move it to the top left corner because that is the standard for most of the websites. The logo is in the top left corner for most of the websites. And once you have it perfectly aligned within the grid system right here, you see we are not overflowing and leaving objects halfway like this. We are perfectly aligning them within the grid system so that the spacing and alignment is consistent. Okay, and once you've done that, hit enter, and now you can see the logo has perfectly aligned. The next is to create the menu items itself. So for the menu items, you're going to go ahead and click on the text tool, hit the screen, and it's going to start typing the text. So here I'm going to first call home, which is going to be my first menu item. Now, this font is exactly not the right, it's too thin for me. So I'm just going to select this text and I'm going to select the font, which is Montserrat. I'm going to increase its thickness to something like extra bold and black color with 16 pixels font. Yeah, I think this is thick enough for my menu items to be easily visible on the screen. I would like my menu items to be capitalized instead of a sentence case. So I'm just going to select that and I'm going to use the type options right here. The first option will capitalize my text. Okay. So we have the home. What is the next menu item that we need to create? Let's go ahead and have access to our layers panel. So the layers panel is hidden by the swatches panel. I'm just going to click and drag the swatches panel out so that I can see the layers panel right here. So we have the home text right here. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. And I'm going to click and drag it outside. And I'm going to call it About Us, which is the About Us link to the website. I'm going to do that again and click and drag. I'm using shift to perfectly drag it into a straight line. Okay. So next would be menu. I'm going to duplicate this again. I'm going to call it blog. And the last item on the screen on the menu is contact us, which is great. Right, so we have all the menu items laid out, and there was also a phone number that we want in between the menu and the logo. So let's go ahead and duplicate this once more. I'm going to click it and drag it right here. I'm going to call it call 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. So this is just a temporary phone number. It does not exist. It's just for demonstration purposes. So this is coming out to be nice. Okay, the last part of the header is the icons, or the search, the account, and the cart icon. Okay, this is the space that is going to be allotted for that. So I'm going to align my menu in such a way that there is enough space for those icons right here. So the last item of the menu, I'm just going to click and drag it to end it at this column right here. And the first item of the menu, I'm just going to go ahead and start it from here, which is the beginning of this column. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to perfectly align all of these by equidistant. I can't do that manually because that would be not correct. I can make mistakes. So all I have to do is select all of these text layers right here, and using the alignment tools here on the top, the first thing I will do is I will vertically align them, and then I will distribute them horizontally by equidistance using this icon right here. And you see now all of these icons have perfect, all of these texts have perfectly aligned themselves by equidistance to each other. Okay. The next step in the process is to bring in the icons. And there is a way to use icons on Photoshop. We are going to learn that. It's using Font Awesome. Font Awesome is an online service and repository of icons. So let's go ahead and dive deeper into that. We are going to learn how to bring in icons into Photoshop and how to use them effectively. Okay, using that. Using a service called Font Awesome. font awesome. Just type font awesome on your browser, and you will have the first link, which is the font awesome website. Click on there and the website should fire up. And here I want you to use their free service to use the icons. We don't need the paid because most of the icons can be accessed using the free service. So I'm going to go ahead and select start for free. And once you are in this particular page, navigate to this section which says other ways to use, and then go ahead and click on the download button right here. And once you click on the download button, it will take you to a section where it asks you whether you want it for the web or whether you want it for the desktop. Now we need the icons on our desktop so that we can use them. So I want you to go ahead and click free for desktop button right here. So the moment you click free for desktop, there will be a folder that will get downloaded into your downloads folder. Okay, it's the font awesome folder. Move that particular folder to your project that you're building. Okay, and let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so we have the folders open here. So you will have something like this downloaded, and then move it into your project. Double click on this particular folder and then navigate to OTFs. And there are three particular fonts inside this. I want you to go ahead and install all of these three fonts or typefaces. Basically, these three versions are Font Awesome's typeface that you can use in Photoshop, and they can be converted easily into icons. And we'll learn how to do that just now. So once you have installed all of these three fonts, go back into your Photoshop. Okay, now to bring in the search icon right here, what are we going to do? The first step is to go back to the Font Awesome website, and using the search feature right here, we're going to click on the search, and then we're going to search for an icon called search. So just type search and hit enter, and you see Font Awesome will throw us some options for selection. So the ones that don't have the pro on top are free, and the ones that are with pro are paid. We don't need paid, we need a free version. I like this particular one. I'm just going to click on it, and the moment you click on it, you will have this dialog box opened up. I want you to look at the top right corner. Okay, there's this option called copy glyph. I want you to click on that, and the moment you do, it will say copied. And then go back into our Photoshop project, and then using the type tool, I want you to start typing, and I want you to use Command V or Control V and paste the item that you've copied from Font Awesome. And if you see, I'm going to enlarge. I'm going to enlarge what I've just typed. You see there is this box which has this cancel in it. It's basically, it does not recognize what you've just typed. So to make it sense, to make it visible into a search icon, we're going to select this text, and using the character panel right here, I'm going to find the Font Awesome font that I just installed, and I'm going to select the appropriate font that makes the icon visible. Okay, and now if you look at this particular text, it's transformed itself into an icon. And this is great because it's in a text format, which means that no matter how much you scale it, it's not going to pixelate, which is exactly what we need. We need all icons to be super sharp in our project. So I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to scale it down to an approximate size and move it in place. Now, the text that I typed out was 16 pixels. Perhaps I'm going to use the same size for this. I'm going to type 16 and see how it's going to look. Now, I feel that 16 is too tiny. So I'm going to select that again and just make it 20 pixels. So yeah, I feel 20 pixels is an appropriate size for the icons. So I'm going to leave it at that. The next icon that we need is the account or user icon. Okay. Now to do that, we're going to go back to Font Awesome. We're going to search something called as user. And then I like the first one. I'm going to select that. I'm going to go ahead and copy the glyph again, go back into my project, and I'm going to use the same search icon and duplicate the layer. I'm going to move this to the side, and I'm going to select the text, and I'm going to hit Command V or Control V and paste. And you see that glyph got copied here, and it changed into a user icon. Okay, that's great. That's efficient workflow. Next is inline is the cart icon. So we're going to go back to the Font Awesome website. We're going to search cart. I like the first one. I'm going to select it, copy the glyph, go back into my Photoshop project. I'm going to duplicate the user icon, move it to the end of the grid, select the text and paste using Command V. And you see the cart icon now gets perfectly pasted in its at the edge of the grid line. Now we have the lens, the user, and the cart icons perfectly in place. I'm going to select all of these three, and I'm going to use the align tools to perfectly align them in a single straight line and distribute them equally across my screen of the area that I have selected. So you see now I have the header perfectly built, and if I want to see it without the grid lines, I can use Command colon and just hide the grid lines for some time just to have a overall look at the header itself. I think it looks okay to me. Everything is in line. Yeah. So this is how you build the header of the mockup. Let's move on to the next part of the mockup design, which is creating the hero section of the mockup. Now, to create the hero section, which is the section after the header, first we will do is create a rectangle which is going to fill the entire space of the artboard. Okay, and we're gonna make it quite large so that we can see the images and other things efficiently. Okay, so I just clicked and dragged a rectangle. Currently it's black in color, and let's go ahead and look at the size of the rectangle itself. You see me manually clicking and dragging, it created a rectangle of size 1925, whereas the artboard itself is at 1920 width, so which means the rectangle is overflowing. So always look at the values, the absolute values that Photoshop suggests, instead of relying on your manual, in your manual experience of creating elements, because sometimes our eyes can lie, but values don't. So go ahead and change this width to 1920 so that it perfectly fits inside the artboard, and the height of this particular rectangle is at 752 pixels. I want it fairly large. I'm going to change this to 800. I think that's a good size. Perhaps let's try 900. Okay. And let's make sure there is no stroke on it. We don't want any outline. And the fill color is going to be the swatch, the beige that I had created in the swatch. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the beige option right here. Okay, now we have the fill of the rectangle, which is beige. However, you see you cannot see the header now because the header is behind the hero section. We need the header to be on top of every element on the web page. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this rectangle here, and we're going to position it to the last um, of the project right here, and that would rearrange its hierarchy, and we'll make it go back. Now we have reached an important point in the project where the layers panel can start getting complicated if we start building more elements, okay? Because everything now is laid out as one, in everything will be laid out like individual layers, and we are going to be confused on what layer is where. So it's the right time to create groups for our project. So since we have the header built, we're going to create a new group, and we're going to call this header, and I'm going to move all of the layers that are related to the header, and I'm going to click and drag it into the header group. And you see everything now about the header is grouped, and you can hide it and see that everything is in there. And the next section that we are creating is the hero section. So we're going to go ahead and create another group and call it hero section. And I'm going to click this rectangle and drag it into the hero section, and the rectangle goes in there. So that's a good way to work in your project, right? Having a good workflow for artboards and groups is extremely important as your project gets complicated. Okay, now that we have the beige rectangle, we are going to be bringing the image of the dish. Let's go and open the images folder and find that particular image that we're going to use and drag it into a project. So the moment you drag it, it's going to fill up the entire space. I'm going to resize this to something appropriate for now and hit enter. Just going to leave it here. Okay. Now, in our mockup that we analyzed, there was this orange color rectangle, like a vector image behind this image. So we are going to go ahead and create that right now. So to create that, I'm going to use the rectangle tool again, and I'm going to click and drag a specific size that I'm happy with, and I'm going to change its color to the orange. That is the brand orange color. Okay, and I don't want any stroke, and I want a rounded rectangle. I want the edges of this rectangle to be rounded. So I can use these particular values right here, which control the left, right, bottom left, and bottom right, and they are linked together using this option. So that is good. I want all the four sides to round together. So I'm just going to click and drag, and you see the rectangle will now start having rounded edges. So I'm going to select something appropriate that I feel that is good, and then I'm going to move this rectangle below the rectangle below the image, and now I can see the image on top. And using the rectangle tool, I'm going to hit Control or Command T, and I'm going to rotate this to create a nice effect. And I'm going to place it approximately in a way that is perfectly in between this image, and it's covering few items of the header. And I'm just going to hit enter. Right, so I'm just going to move it slightly more to the right, and I'm going to align it with this grid right here. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to enlarge this image. I feel it's a little tiny, so I'm going to hit Control or Command T on this, and I'm going to enlarge this holding Shift, and I'm going to align it perfectly with the grid. You see the edge of this image is aligned with this, and the other edge is going to be aligned with this. So I'm going to perfectly fit it in and hit enter. Right. You see? Yeah. I feel this is looking good already. Okay. I am happy with this. And now we are going to start typing out the text that was in the hero section, the promotional text. So we're gonna have a look at what the promotional text was in a few moments. Okay, so the promotional text has a subheading which is discover your taste, and then a main heading which says enjoy your delicious food, and then we have a paragraph, and then we have two call to action buttons. So let's go ahead and start creating this. So let's go back to our project, and using the text tool, I'm going to start typing on the screen. Um, the text was discover your taste for the subheading. And you see it's picked up the last font that we have used. Now we have the paragraph style open right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to override the text right here. And I'm going to go ahead and select subheading. And you see the moment I do that, it transformed itself to the subheading paragraph style. Um, However, the text that we need is capital, all caps. So with the text selected, I'm going to use the type options right here, and I'm going to capitalize all of this text. And let's look at the color of the text. It's black, but in our mockup, we have it in green. So using the swatch, I'm going to select green. And then you see the text is now transformed into green color. And it perfectly fits into the grid itself, which is great, exactly what we need. The next is the main heading. And I'm going to click and drag a new paragraph. And the main heading says, enjoy your delicious food. So I'm going to select all of this text and start typing out, enjoy your delicious food. And then with the text selected, I'm going to override this, and I'm going to select heading, and it's going to take up the size of the heading. You see, I can't see the rest of it because the paragraph is area is small. So I'm just going to click and drag so that everything is visible. And I'm going to click and drag it horizontally as well so that it fits. And I'm going to capitalize the first letters there. So now we have the subheading and the main heading. I feel there's too much distance between them. I'm just going to click this and drag it so that it is, yeah, this looks good. The next is to create a paragraph. So I'm going to use a text tool again. I'm going to click and drag paragraph. I'm going to override the settings and I'm going to select paragraph. Just going to have two lines of paragraph. And I'm going to move this up right here. Okay, so now we have the subheading, main heading, the paragraph. The next step is to create the call to action buttons. I'm going to do that using the rectangle tool. I'm just going to click and drag a rectangle, fit it inside the grid perfectly. And as I let go, a rectangle is created. Let's look at the size of the rectangle. It says 184 pixels in width, which is okay. And the height is 50 pixels, which is great. Any call to action buttons for a mockup need to be at least 50 pixels in height. That's a good standard to have. It can go higher, it can be 60 or 70, but anything lower will make the button too tiny. So 50 is a good number. Right now it's green color. We're going to use the orange because our first call to action button was orange in color. And then we are going to have a round edge of, I'd say, 10 pixels on all the four sides. and then we have a perfectly round edged button. We're going to start typing text, which is order now, which goes inside the button. It's yellow in color. We're going to change this to black. And the font, I'm going to make it slightly thicker to extra bold. And then I'm going to move this text inside the button in the center. Now, how do I know that the text is perfectly in center of the button? I can do that using the align tools. So I select the text, I select the rectangle, and then using the align tools, I just click center, and it perfectly centers everything horizontally and vertically. So always make use of the alignment tools. Now that we have one button created, let's go ahead and select these two layers and duplicate them and click and drag. And I'm going to change this text to book a table. Okay. And the color of the rectangle is going to be green. Okay. And the text color is going to be white. So I'm going to select white from the swatch, but it's off center. So I'm going to select these two layers and I'm going to use the alignment tools to align them center. Okay. So now we can see that the hero section is nicely coming along. Okay. Now the last part for the hero section is going to be bringing in the icons, which you can see here. There are some icons on the screen. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to open up the project and go to the icons folder and open up this food icons.psd file. All of the icons that are used are here, and you see they are in different layers. All of these layers are linked to each other, which means that if I click and drag one, then everything gets dragged in. Now, I do not want all of these logos. I just need a few of them. So I'm going to select all and I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to unlink all of these layers so that I can control them individually. So I like this prawn icon right here. So I'm just going to click it and drag it into my project. Okay. And I'm going to drop it right here. And let's go back and select something else. I like the chicken. I'm going to move that, place it right here. Then I like this egg. I'm going to move it right here. I like the sandwich. And perhaps I also like the cheese. I guess the burger. And the last one I like is the steak. Okay, I've moved in some icons on the screen. They're large in size. So what am I going to do? I'm going to select all of these layers holding shift and select all of these icons that I've just imported and hit Command T on it. And I'm going to resize all of them together. I'm going to do them in such a way that it's approximate to what I need. Like I like this size. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to hit enter and all of them will take that size. And now I can use the move tool and individually select these icons and move them around on the screen and place them randomly on the hero section. I'm just gonna move this right here. Sorry about that. Burger. And the last one is the sandwich. Right. So now I moved them around randomly, which is great, but I feel they're too loud, they're too bright, like the black color is kind of taking away from the hero section. I want it faded. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of these layers again, and using the opacity here, I'm going to reduce their opacity so that it is nice and subtle. They exist, but it's not overpowering the design itself. Okay. So, yep, we have the icons perfectly placed. Now, you see the artboard is coming to its limit. Now, that's the end of the artboard, which is 1080p, which is pixels. That's the limit that we initially had. So we can extend the length of the artboard using this particular text. Just click on it. It'll get a blue border, and I want you to go to the bottom of this, and the icon will, the pointer will change, and click and drag the size of the artboard to extend it in height. That will take a new height, and you will have more space to work with. Okay. um, so this is great. Next is to bring in that dial, that dish which is hidden behind the hero section. Let's go back to our folder, go to images, bring in the Greek salad, and hit resize this. Resize it to approximate size that you are happy with. Place it in the center of the screen. Okay, and hit enter. To place it in the center perfectly, I'm going to I'm going to select this and use the align tools. But you see, it's on top of the hero section. I want it at the bottom of the hero section. So I'm going to click and drag this all the way to the bottom of the layers panel, and that should hide itself behind the hero section. So I don't like these two cheese slices. I want a different view of the bowl, so I'm just going to use the command T transform tools and rotate this to a good crop. Like this particular style is nice, some greens and colors are there. I'm just going to hit enter. So cool, I'm happy with this. And now there was a shadow at the bottom of the hero section itself, and also there was a shadow of the bowl. If let's go back to a design, you see there's a drop shadow to this bowl which gives it a realistic effect. Similarly, there's a drop shadow to the hero section which gives it a menu effect. We're going to go ahead and start creating the drop shadow for this. So to create the drop shadow for the bowl, we're just going to click on this and select that image, double click on that layer, and then it'll open the layer styles. Select drop shadow, and you can see a drop shadow preview. Okay, and click on the drop shadow, and it'll open up multiple options for you for the drop shadow. Here, the opacity is basically how bright you want it or opaque you want it. So we're going to go high right now because I want to see the shadow itself and where it is forming. So it's at the bottom right now. I want it to the right side. So using the angle dial, I'm just going to angle it in such a way that it is to the right side of the page. You see, now I have placed it to the right side, which is great. The distance is basically how far I want it. So I want it somewhere this far, which is great. The spread is how deep the shadow is or faded it is. So I want the spread to be minimal to give it a nice faded effect. The size is again, how glowy the shadow is in itself is. This is just too much. It makes it look fake. We need it somewhere, I think 9 to 10 pixels is good. And then I'm just going to decrease the opacity to something like 50% is good. Yeah, 50% is good. I'm going to hit OK. So now we have a nice drop shadow for the bowl itself. And next is to have a drop shadow for the hero section. So you're going to go ahead and click this rectangle, select it right here, double click on it, hit drop shadow, select it, and then I'm going to increase the distance, increase the size because I want it more faded. You see the size is kind of making it more fall on the white. And right, so there's one thing important to note here. If the use global light checkbox is checked, then all of the shadows that are in your project, all of the other items will be controlled by one setting itself. So setting a shadow for this will also change for this. So we don't want that. We want the shadow to be independent of each other. So I want you to go ahead and uncheck this so that you can control the shadow of each individual yourself. That's important. Otherwise, you're going to be changing the shadows for all of the items. So once I'm happy with this, I hit OK. And you see, now we have the hero section of the website perfectly built, the header perfectly built. So the next step in the process is to create the selling points. So let's look at the mockup. So we need to create three different selling points: the best chef, fresh food, and fast delivery. So they're under inside a rectangle. So let's go ahead and first of all create a new group in the layers panel, and we're going to call it selling points. Selling points. Okay, we're going to put them inside the artboard, and then we're gonna start creating the rectangles. So I'm going to create a rectangle that's approximately a square right there, and then go to the properties, and I want the color to be beige, which is great. And I want a stroke for the rectangle, because if you look at the design, there's a nice gray stroke or a outline for the rectangle. So we're going to go ahead and build a stroke. So we're going to choose a color which is slightly gray, hit OK, and then the width of the stroke, I want to thicken it a little bit because I'm not able to see it. So I'm going to make it 3 pixels. And now if you see, there's a nice stroke on the rectangle. I want a nice rounded edge rectangle. So I'm going to increase the rounded edge to somewhere like 10 pixels. Perfect. So now we have a rectangle. The next thing that we're going to do is import the icons, because there are some icons: the chef, the tray, and the time icon, and then a subheading and a paragraph text. So let's bring in the chef icon here, and I'm going to resize this, and I'm going to place it inside the rectangle. I'm going to bring it down some more, place it inside the guide system, and hit enter. You see all of these elements are getting formed outside the selling points group. So that's fine. We can always drag them and put them in there later. The next is to create a subheading. So I'm just going to click and hit text and call it best chef. And it's white right now. I'm going to select the text. I'm going to override the paragraph styles and select subheading. And you see it changes to that font and typeface that I need. I'm going to align it in the center. The last is the paragraph. I'm going to click and drag the paragraph, and I'm going to override any settings and select paragraph. You see there's an issue. The paragraph is left aligned. We need the paragraph to be center aligned because all of these elements are in the center. So I'm going to select all the text and choose center align in the paragraph settings right here. And see now this paragraph, the subheading, the selling point, and the icon are in place. Okay, which is great. That's exactly what we need. Now we need 2 more. So what I'm going to do is that since I've already made one, I'm just going to select all of these layers and I'm going to duplicate them. Okay, and I'm going to hold shift and click and drag the second one and place it right at the center, which is equidistant to that. And then I'm going to change the icon for this. So the second icon is the tray icon. So I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to resize it to similar to the size of the chef. That's great. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to select this repeated chef image and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to drag the tray icon to its place. Okay. So the second text in our mockup was fresh food. I'm going to change that by double clicking here and type out fresh food, which is good. And we're going to align the text all in the center perfectly right there. And it all looks good, fresh food. There's one thing though, the icon here is green in color and not black. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can do that by selecting this layer, and I'm going to double click on this, open up the layer styles, and then I can select color overlay option right here. And you have to check this, and right now it's selected black. I'm going to go ahead and change its color. Okay. Um, we're going to change its color to the green there. So I selected it from the swatch right here on the top and I hit OK. And you see it took that color, and I'm going to hit OK. Try and make sure that you're using the same colors throughout the mockup and not creating more colors and creating different styles. That's very important to have cohesiveness in the design. Now that we have the second one, we're going to go ahead and we're going to select all of these layers and duplicate them again. And I'm going to hold shift and drag them and create the last selling point. And again, we're going to repeat the process. We're going to bring in the last icon, which is the clock. And I'm going to resize it to the approximate to the size of the other images. Hit enter. I'm going to get rid of the tray image. I'm going to align this in the center, which is good. And the last one is quick delivery. I'm going to change up the text, and we are going to align it in the center. Right. So yes, so now we have the three selling points which are created. Let's move on to the next section from here. The next section is the About Us section. So let's go ahead and have a look at the About Us. So there's a photograph and it's got a nice drop shadow to it, and there's a subheading and some text. And you see it's somewhere in the middle of the grid system. So let's go ahead and start creating the About Us section. To create the About Us section, first thing we will do is create a new group, and we're going to call it About Us. Okay, and we're going to move it inside the artboard, and then we're going to bring in the image of the About Us section, and we're going to resize it somewhere, perfectly align it to this grid system right here. I think that's a bit too tiny. I'm gonna enlarge it a little bit more, perhaps this size. Let's have it centered right here. Okay, yeah, I like the size, so we're going to leave it at this. The next is we're going to type the subheading, which is About Us, and picks up the same subheading that was the last text that we've typed out. I'm going to align it here in the center, and then we're going to create a paragraph below this, and it picks up the subheading. We want to override that, so we're going to override and select paragraph, and then we are going to center align it, and there we have the About Us section perfectly in place. Right, let's move on to the next one, which is our blog section. So that's below About Us. So it has a subheading and it has two blog. blocks with paragraphs and arrows to navigate to the left and right. So let's first go ahead and create the subheading of our blog. I'm just going to type out our blog, and it picks up the old format character paragraph style. So we're going to override that and select subheading for this, and we're going to align it in the center of the page. I can do that by selecting this and then hitting center align. That will go to the center. And then we're going to create a rectangle here, approximately the size, and we're going to have a rounded edge rectangle which is around 10 pixels. This is great. We don't need any stroke, so we're going to get rid of the stroke. Okay. And now we are going to bring in, hold on, let's move the all the elements of the about us section to the about us group first. Let's select all of this. Let's leave the rectangle outside, select these three elements, and then move it into the about us group. So the about us group is now separate, which is great. That's exactly how we need. Let's create another group for our blog and call it our blog, and move these two elements into that group. Now we have a good workflow. Okay, now with this selected, the rectangle selected, let's go ahead and bring in the first blog image. Okay, now the first blog image is this particular image right here. I'm going to drag it in there, and then we're going to resize this, place it somewhere in reference to the rectangle. I'm just going to click and resize this and hit enter. And now I'm just going to rearrange this. I can clip this particular image into the rectangle if I hover over this edge and hit Option or Alt on my keyboard. The icon will change to something like this, like an arrow pointing downwards. If I just click onto that, it will clip the image into the rectangle itself, and you see there'll be this arrow indication that the image is clipped inside. And now you see the overflow of the image is gone and it's clipped perfectly inside the rectangle. Okay, this is great. Now we have one image ready. Let's go ahead and create another rectangle. Of the similar size. We're going to have 10 pixels round edge. Feel the height is a bit small. Just going to increase the height and match it. There. I'm going to get rid of the stroke because we don't need it. Great. And then I'm going to bring in the other image, which was perhaps this one. Drag it in there. Just going to resize this. I'm going to increase the size in reference to the rectangle. Okay, and then I'm going to clip it inside the rectangle. So once you see the both images, the overflow is gone, it's perfectly clipped. Now if I do want to change the crop of the image, all I need to do is just click and drag the image around, and I can select a suitable crop. There. Now we have the two images. Now we need some paragraph text below that. So we're going to hit the text tool and then click and drag a paragraph of approximate size. The text is taking from the subheading. We have to override that and then select paragraph. And we're going to center align it. Like that. And then with the same paragraph, I'm just going to duplicate this text and I'm going to copy it over here. Perfect. Now we have the blog images in sync and in place. Now we need is the navigation. So to create the navigation, I'm going to select the rectangle tool and I'm going to use the last grid point as a reference and create a rectangle. And I'm going to change the properties of the rectangle, change the color to the orange. Okay. And then we need an icon, an arrow icon inside this rectangle. So to find an arrow icon, I'm going to go back into my font awesome website and I'm going to search uh, an arrow, or it's also called a chevron. Okay. And then I need the right chevron because I'm creating the right side arrow. So I'm just click on that. I'm going to copy the glyph. Okay. And then I'm going to use a text tool, start typing, and I'm going to paste it with Command V. Okay. And I'm going to resize it just so that I can see it better. I'm going to select the text. I'm going to change it to font awesome right here. And that will transform that icon to the chevron or the arrow. And I'm just going to resize it back into the rectangle and just manage the size so that it's in proportion to the rest of the elements and hit enter. Cool. Now we have a rectangle and a navigation arrow created for the right side of the web page. All we need to do to create the left side is to select these two, we duplicate them, click and drag them to the other end using Shift, and then using the transform tools, Command T, I can rotate this entire rectangle and hit enter. And now we have the left and the right navigation along with the blog subheading and the images. Let's have a look. There you go. And some of the elements are outside the group. We're just going to select all of this and then put them inside our blog group so that everything is in proper organized folders in our groups. Perfect. So that's how you create the R blog section. The next in line is the footer. So let's analyze from the finished mockup on what the footer contains. So the footer is divided in three sections. The first section is the logo, a paragraph about the business. We have the phone number and the email to contact the business. In the subsection of the footer, the second one we have quick links, which is the menu items laid out again for easy access. And then we have an Instagram feed, which of the business right here, followed by the last bit, which is the copyright or the reserved right information, which is a text. Okay, so having analyzed that, let's go back to our design and begin constructing the footer. So for the footer, first we will create a rectangle ranging from one end to the other. We're going to keep an approximate size. You can see that as I'm dragging this size of the rectangle, I can see the pixels, how much tall and wide I'm making it. So I'm going to make something, I would say 550 pixels. So 550 pixels is good. So it's 551. So I'm just going to adjust this to 550. Okay. So the color that it picked up on the rectangle is orange. We're going to go ahead and change this to black. We picked up the color from the swatch because that's the color of the footer. Okay. We're going to bring back the guides. so that we can see that we are working within the guideline system using command and colon. Next, we're going to bring the logo. So to bring the logo, I'm going to go to the logo folder, and then I'm going to select logo dark, which is the logo version for darker backgrounds, because the lighter one won't work here. So we're going to bring that in, and I'm going to resize the logo, and I'm going to place it at the left, and I'm going to fit it inside the grid system, the guide system right here, and hit enter. So that's a good place to start. And then we have a paragraph about the business itself. So I'm going to click and drag a paragraph about the business. Okay. And I'm going to override the paragraph style and make it a paragraph. The text color here would be white because we are on a black background. So I'm going to change it to white and hit OK. Then we have the phone number. Now, for the phone number, we have an icon, which is like a phone, and then we have the number itself. So to bring in the icon, we are going to go back to our Font Awesome website, and we are going to search phone. And then we're going to pick the first option right here. We're going to copy the glyph, go back to our project, type out a text, and I'm going to paste it using command V. Okay. And just so that you can see, I'm going to enlarge this. I'm going to select the text and change the font to Font Awesome. And that changes the font to the phone icon. I'm going to go ahead and transform this and resize this to the size of my icons on the top. So that was, I think, 20 pixels. So 20 pixels is good. Just gonna leave it here at the edge, and then I'm gonna type the phone number itself. Okay, so it's gonna be +12345678890. That's the phone number. So I'm gonna select the text. I'm gonna override the paragraph styles, give it a subheading because that's the size I want for the phone number, and the color I need it white because we are on the black background. And I'm going to align it somewhere like this, which is good. And next is email. Again, we're going to repeat the process of going into Font Awesome. And now we're going to search email. And I like the first one. I'm going to select it. I'm going to copy the glyph. I'm going to duplicate the phone icon, bring it down. Oops. And I'm going to paste the new glyph, and that brings in the email icon. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate the phone number, and I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to align it with the email. Select the text. I'm going to override styles. I'm going to select paragraph, and I'm going to convert it to white and hit OK. And I'm going to change the text to www.kingsfood.com. That's the email. Okay. So yeah, we're pretty much there. I think the email is a bit bolder than the paragraph. So we're going to select this text and change the font to semi-bold. That should bring in some thickness. Okay, that's good. So we've got the first section of the footer covered. Next, let's go and create the second section. which is the quick links. So I'm gonna start typing using my text tool and call it quick links. And I'm going to select this text. I'm going to overwrite the styles. I'm going to make it a subheading. I'm going to convert the font color to white so that you can see it clearly. Okay, I'm going to align it right in the center. And let's go back to our reference. So you see the links text is in orange. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the links and we're going to use the swatch to color it. And now we have a nicely colored heading. Next is to type out the menu itself. So let's go ahead and one by one, let's type all the menu items. It's currently black. We're going to change the font color to white. Okay. And I feel the font size is a little big. We're going to scale it down a little bit. We're going to select this and we are going to change this to 20 pixels. Yeah, 20 pixels is good. So we're going to keep this. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate and move this down and call it, what was the second one? About Us. And duplicate it again. And call this Menu. I'm going to duplicate this again. And I'm going to call this Blog. And the last one, repeating it again. And we're going to call this Contact Us. Okay. Now, I want to align the menu items such a way that it perfectly aligns with the first section. So I'm going to move the last item in alignment to the email, which is King's Food. And then I'm going to go ahead and select each of these menu items. And using the align tools on the top, first thing I will do is left align them so that each of them are left aligned. And then I'm going to distribute them equally so that each of the, oops, what happened here? Okay. There's some glitch, hold on. Okay, that was a render glitch. That's not a concern. So let's move on. So we've created the section 2 of the footer. And the last section is the Instagram feed. So for the Instagram feed, we are going to go ahead and select this heading right here. We're going to duplicate that heading and we're going to move it to the end, perhaps here. And then we're going to rename this to Instagram. Okay. And now let's go back to our reference. So we have a grid of images, 6 images, which are clipped inside these rectangles. How do we achieve that? So we are going to do that by creating rectangles of equal sizes. So we're going to go ahead and create a rectangle here. I'm going to size it to this. No, I'm going to keep it in the center. Perfectly aligned in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this rectangle and using shift move it over. I'm going to duplicate it again. Using shift, I'm going to move it over, align it in the center. And then I'm going to select all the 3 rectangle layers and duplicate them again and move all the 3 using shift at the bottom right here, like that. Okay. And the next step, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to merge all of these rectangles together. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these rectangles, right click, and then select merge shapes, and everything gets merged into one layer right here called rectangle. Okay, so now we have this particular rectangles. So we're going to go ahead and select the image that we want as the feed. Okay, and we are going to scale this down, and I'm going to place it somewhere on top of the feed itself, and then I'm going to clip this image like I did for the blogs into this rectangle right here. And you see all of the images, all of that one image is clipped inside each of these rectangles. Okay, so I'm just going to move this Instagram heading in alignment to this. I think that's good. Okay, so it's good so far. The last bit is the copyright information. So for that, we're going to go ahead and create another rectangle of the full artboard size, 1920, and align it in the center. The same with this. Make sure you're using the correct sizes. You can type out the sizes here in case they're incorrect, and then align it in the center. Okay, and we have this rectangle here, so I'm going to remove the stroke from it, and the color using the swatch was green, so I'm going to go ahead and select green. I'm going to move it slightly down. I see that the rectangle, black rectangle, is overflowing, so I'm going to select that, hit Control T, and using Shift I'm just going to click and drag from the bottom without holding Shift, and that should resize the rectangle itself. So now we have the green footer. I'm just going to start typing text on top of that. Oops. So just going to start typing here, all rights reserved, King's Food Limited. And this text, I'm going to override it, and I'm going to make it into a paragraph. Okay, override it, make it into a paragraph, and the text color is going to be black, and I'm just going to move it here. You can't see it because it's up below the rectangle. I'm going to move the layer at the top, sorry, right here. Where's the green rectangle? Right here. And then place it somewhere in the center, and I'm going to align it perfectly in the center using my alignment tools. I'm going to make the font a little thicker, like a semi-bold is good. Okay, yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. We've covered everything, and the one thing that we missed is grouping all of these elements here. So let's create a new group, call it footer, and move the footer inside the artboard itself, and select all of these items, layers, and move it into the footer. And now you can see everything is perfectly in groups. So I see that the artboard is overflowing. We need to resize that by clicking on the artboard and then resizing it. Okay, that'll resize the artboard itself. So to have the entire look of the mockup without the grid lines, I'm going to toggle the grid lines and have a look at it again. And you see the header, the text is green, the phone number. we're going to go ahead and select this text using the swatch. I'm going to make it green there. So we have the icons, we have the call to action buttons, we have the about us, the blog, the selling points, and the footer. Great. Now that our mockup is ready, the next step is to save this mockup as an image. Okay. To do that, let's first save the main file, and then using file, we're going to go to export and then save for web, and then we're going to select the format as JPEG. We're going to keep the quality to 100%, and you see the width of the canvas is 1920. That's full HD. That is exactly what we wanted, and we can have a preview of how it looks. That's the height. Okay, and it says convert to sRGB. Keep that checked in, and then click save, and then let's go ahead in the folder and the main folder, and I'm going to save it as kingsfoodv1.jpg. Save. So that we have a perfectly saved the mockup as a JPEG, and that JPEG can be supplied to the developer for reference on the layout, or can be sent to your seniors for approval on the template itself. Okay, so this is one of the best ways to create a mockup using Photoshop, and thank you very much.